The following podcast was birthed from the psychological loins of two mediocre men. This asshole. And this morose motherfucker. It represents minutes of actual work and a few microvolts of cerebral energy. The agenda is to make you motherfuckers woke. Now let's light this candle.
And it's recording now.
Welcome, everyone.
Well, not everyone. There might be people in here that we don't want. So
except Todd. Yeah,
fuck
screw you, Todd.
All right. Number one. There's no fucking
Number
Democratic
one. So
primary.
the first significant primary for the Democrats happened. And Biden got, I think, something ridiculous, like 95% of the vote or something. He got all the delegates. Marianne Williamson came in second and Dean Phillips came in third, but they were both under 2%. So I guess having a better candidate is off the table.
Well, Marianne Williamson is not a better candidate, so let's just
no, she's not. That. She's not, but there might be other candidates in other states on the ballot, and it just doesn't seem like they're going to probably do any better than that either. I haven't really paid attention. Like, where is the guy from the Young Turks? Is he on any ballots?
I don't know if he's on any ballots, but I've seen him being visible and talking about his.
I mean, I like him. I'll vote for him if he's on my ballot.
That's the whole thing is a fucking setup anyway. The DNC is not promoting or even allowing anyone else to be a part of the conversation. The whole fucking system is just a setup. Right? Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, but I mean, Biden's not, even if Biden loses, he's not running in 2028.
Well, he probably won't be alive in 2028.
Probably not. So there'll be a bunch more Democrats running, hopefully some leftists, because I mean, that's what happens when you're replacing when there's not an incumbent running, you get like 12 candidates to start with, and then it whittles down. But hopefully there'll be some leftists on there that we can get some support behind. But forget it. The presidency's done. It's going to be Biden versus Trump. There's nothing we can do about it. But there will be other races. There'll be Senate races. There'll be every House member's up for re-election. So, I don't know what's going on there. Locally, I've got a Republican, so I'd love to get rid of his ass.
I'm still not convinced, and I'm going to continue beating this dead horse for a few more months. I'm still not convinced it's going to be Biden versus Trump. I'm not.
Well, there is a possibility Trump will get off the ballot. There's been some Republicans calling for that lately.
I think it's going to hinge. I think it's going to hinge largely on legal actions that should be wrapped up decisively in the next few months that will put pressure on the RNC to say that, first of all, we have to consider whether or not the Republican Party wants to throw the system into complete chaos in November. We can assume that that's true, but underneath all of this, there is an agenda of homeostasis that goes on, that these decisions are tied directly into things like the stock market and other variables that the people in power are going to benefit from. So if the Republicans have an agenda of throwing the system into complete chaos, how do they benefit from that? And benefit is about money. How are they going to accrue more money by throwing the system into chaos?
Well, if the Democrats don't take the House, even if Biden wins, it doesn't really matter because there'll just be nothing will happen for 4 years like has been happening. Mm-hmm. No good legislation will be passed. There'll be compromise bills where the Democrats give up a bunch of shit that nobody wants to the Republicans just to get something passed. Because there's going to be funding issues again, right? We're still on a temporary funding, so that's going to come up again. And it's going to keep coming up. They're probably just until somebody holds all three both chambers of the Congress and the presidency, until one party holds all of that, there's not going to be a permanent funding solution. I don't think they're just going to keep doing short term.
But do you agree with the idea that these politicians, whether they be from who's occupying the White House through the Senate, don't maneuver things according to ideas of policy? They are maneuvering things that give the appearance that they're pushing certain policies in one direction or another because that particular choice benefits them financially somehow in that moment. So it isn't that they have an agenda to create more jobs or to ban abortion or to, whatever these things are. They do these things because it's a revenue generator for them. Everything that they do is about lining their fucking pockets. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, that's why all their policies support their donors and not the people.
Yeah.
Yes, that's obvious. And that's why every policy is a corporate first policy, even the Democrats.
Yeah, and all the cheerleading that is being done by individual voters and groups of voters that are flying flags that say, this is my guy because he supports this or this for me. It has nothing the fuck whatsoever to do with you.
That's why, think about this. If let's say we give, at some point in the future, the Democrats get 60 seats in the Senate and 300 seats in the House and the presidency and the Supreme Court somehow, are they going to ever overturn Citizens United? Because it benefits them just as much as it does the Republicans. I mean, that is the key thing that I want to happen to, fix what's wrong with our political system, is get corporate money out.
Well,
will Democrats, even if they have the political capital, will they ever do that? I don't think they will.
No, and that falls along the same lines as what I've said ever since the banter started to come up about getting rid of the filibuster. That the Democrats want to get rid of the filibuster. Bullshit. They want to get rid of the filibuster until the filibuster is a tool that they need. There's no real agenda to do this. They did it because it was a popular maxim to push out at the time, and oh God, fucking hate everything. So yeah, let's leave number one with the illusion of choice.
Yeah, it's going to be tough going to the polls in November. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it.
If it's because the only other viable option on the Republican side, if Trump becomes disqualified, is Nikki Haley. If it's Haley versus Biden, I don't know what the pundits have said that race looks like. I'm suspicious of what it looks like, and we probably want to jump to number 4 on that note. Things Nikki Haley says. But she's toned herself down quite a bit since the majority of, I think, or is it everybody else has jumped out of the Republican race?
Yeah, everybody else is out. It's just her and Trump.
So she's saying, for instance, Texas has a right to secede, but that isn't all she said. She said, but they won't. So she's riding the fence on things now. She's tempering.
Well, I mean, I don't think they will either, but I mean, that's still a silly thing to say. I mean, there was an entire war fought over the fact that states do not have the right to secede.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. And it's, I mean, it is as anything that she says. And yes, you have the right. Go ahead. And Mr. Conspiracy says, we have the right to secede. Go ahead. Secede from this fucking live.
I mean, I wouldn't care if Texas seceded. It wouldn't hurt me any.
It's in our state constitution. Then do it. Then fucking do it. Then fucking secede, bro. Pack your shit. It's pandering. Her statement is, as all statements they make, is she's pandering to a group. And the group are the maggots. The group are Mr. Whatever, Mr. Myopathy.
Yeah, people who never took a civics class that think their state constitution overrides the United States Constitution.
Yeah, or that the federal government is just going to sit by. There's so many good clips that I've come across in the past week that talk about and they're centered on this idea that, because Texas has done this before, this isn't new, that they're going to secede, and they talk about the logistics of it and all the different ways that it could go, and none of it's good. You want to talk about you want to talk about the drug cartels being a problem across the southern border of Texas? Boy, go ahead and secede. They're going to fucking run right into your fucking state and set up pharmacies, you stupid fucks. Oh, no, they won't, because we got guns. Fucking
okay. They got guns too, buddy.
So I want to look, I want to look a little more closely at what pundits are predicting if it was a Haley Biden race, what that would look like. Because I think that looks, I don't know. I think that, first of all, if Trump gets knocked out, where the GOP says, fuck no, we've had enough of this. They've had so many opportunities to do that, but maybe this is the kicker. It changes the landscape for the Republican Party so much, because they are MAGA right now, and that ignorant, illiterate MAGA crowd is the lifeblood of the Republican Party. And if Trump drops out, are MAGA going to cling to the coattails of Nikki Haley? Is she going to adopt?
Where are the Republicans that didn't jump on the MAGA train? Are they independents now?
Fuck if I know. Who are you people?
Where are they?
Yeah, where are the who? Yeah, I don't know. I don't hear from them because they're not as fucking loud and obnoxious and smelly as the others, and so you don't know that they're there. Whereas, MAGA, you smell the patchouli and you know that they're in the room.
Well, you mentioned if Trump gets knocked out, that is Nikki Haley's entire campaign, because she's not attacking him. It's just she and him, and she's not attacking him. She's just hoping that he gets removed.
Yeah, because she doesn't want to alienate his group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's not. If she wanted to beat him, she would be a little, speaking a little bit more closely like Chris Christie was to attack Trump, but she's not. She's just hoping he gets removed so she can magically waltz in.
But if she was going to adopt that line that was closer to what Chris Christie's was, she would have had to do it a lot sooner, because if she does it now, it looks like a 180. And maybe she's waiting for a solid 14th Amendment decision to be made to say, well, that flipped the switch. This can't be allowed to happen. This breaks the rule of law in our country at a very fundamental level. Maybe that's what she's waiting for. I guess we'll see.
Well, either way, she'll be a disaster, but I mean, not as bad as Trump probably, but she'll be a disaster too.
It depends on who she would pick as a VP candidate too. I think that's going to have a huge impact on how that would play out. All right, we jumped around. You pick the next one.
All right. Well, let's talk about the farmers in Europe. I don't know if you've seen the videos of stuff. I don't know why this isn't in the mainstream news, though. It's crazy what's happening. It's happening in several countries.
Spain.
France is a big one, but
France
it's also happening in Poland. It's happening in Germany. They're mad. They're mad because of the subsidies to the Ukrainian imports, right?
I think it's more than that, because the stuff that you're seeing, particularly in France, is stuff that that group has employed for decades. The French farmers get screwed over by government policy all the time, and when they do, they start dumping manure on the steps of every government.
But they're also blocking streets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it's big. It's a huge protest.
Yeah.
And I don't see it on American news anywhere.
Yeah, and I don't pay any attention to the mainstream news sources, so I wouldn't know how much it's out there. But it's a tactic being used by a group of people that have a measurable amount of power. They're being, whether or not they're being effective, they've been effective in the past in terms of swaying government policy. We never see that kind of stuff here. We never see. What we see is groups of people making banners and getting out in the streets, and maybe in a few cases blocking traffic, but we never see the sorts of things that we see in Eastern Europe, when the population decides to do something about that. And it frustrates me. And I don't know why.
Because we're too comfortable.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and that's intentional. I mean, that's why we're based on leisure time, entertainment. Nobody has time to get out there and get their hands dirty. Yeah. There's shows to watch. There's stuff on Netflix to binge.
Yeah, I get it. I wish it was different. I wish we were more.
I do too. We're getting there though, particularly with the people not being able to buy houses and all that stuff, because that's a level of comfort that's going away, and that could lead to better protests in the future. But right now, everybody's just a little bit too comfortable.
And then there's been talk on social media for months, mostly related to the Palestinian issue, about a national strike. There's been a lot of back and forth about the ideas of a national strike. But it's never materialized. There have been dates. There have been dates set. These dates have come and gone, and I think we had some impact in terms of consumerism on companies like McDonald's and Starbucks. But I'm afraid that's petered out.
Right.
And so we don't have the staying power for these sorts of things when we get the ambition to actually execute them, and that means we suck.
We do suck.
I hate us.
Well, the part of the problem is we're so divided. Like, everybody's mad, right? Right leaning people are mad, left leaning people are mad, but the right leaning people in particular are so distracted by what they're mad at. They're being told that they're mad at immigrants and stuff, even though that has nothing to do with what the problems in their lives are.
Yep.
The problems in their lives are caused by the same things that cause the problems in our lives. They just don't realize it. They're just blind to what's actually happening, and just put all their hatred on other people. So if they ever woke up and realized that it was corporate money that is really causing all the problems, and it's the politicians kowtowing to corporate interests that's causing all the problems, and we united on that, change could happen. But that's by design. That's why the Republicans, by design, are, putting the blame onto other things.
Well, and that's why it's so confusing to them in the present time, because they will run across people like me, who I will openly state that I do not support Joe Biden. I do not support the policies and the practices of the Democratic Party. And then the MAGA people that run across me will see that, and they're like, yeah, fuck Joe Biden. And I'm like, fuck you, because the reasons that you hate Joe Biden are not the same reasons that I do. Your reasons are stupid. And you can't really articulate anything that's based in reality that is rooted in your opposition to whatever it is you're opposed to.
They don't even know why they hate Biden, to be honest.
Yeah.
They really don't. Just they were told to.
Yeah, they're to open borders. We have open borders. We're being invaded. And by the way, on that, there's a girl that she's been doing a TikTok live down at Eagle Pass. At that whatever that park is that was allegedly invaded by immigrants. She's been doing it since this all started getting stirred up. There's fucking nobody there.
Yeah, I actually saw her do an interview with someone that was like, yeah, it's not what I expected. There's not as many people as I thought. Right? Yeah, because it's not a fucking invasion, you fucking assholes.
Yeah, it's a manufactured myth that god damn, yeah.
Because you're being lied to and you're just stupid. There's nothing else you can say to a Republican anymore. You're fucking idiots. Every last one of you.
All right, so where are we at? We're at 20 minutes in.
I don't know, but we started talking about the farmers and somehow ended up on
how did we do that?
Back talking about how dumb Republicans are, because that's what it all circles back to, I guess.
Well, it really does.
I know we can mention. So let's do a lighthearted segment. We found out we have a common interest. We have friends of the podcast now. David Letterman and Warren Zevon.
Oh yeah.
we realized we both watched all the Letterman shows in the 90s, and we both like Warren Zevon. So
I love the stuff that Letterman had and I don't even know what it was on. It was on Netflix or something, where he sort of relaunched a different format talk show. It seemed like he was doing it in a subway.
I was aware he did that. I didn't actually watch any of it, but
I saw episodes pop up different places from time to time. I'm like, wow, fucking Letterman's back, and that was exciting.
Well, my favorite thing about Letterman compared to Leno when they were up against each other was you could tell that the guests on Letterman, musical guests and comedians in particular, were happy to be there.
Yeah.
And Letterman would have lesser known people and then make them more known.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know what I mean? Leno would just have A-listers that were just promoting movies and shit. Yeah. But Letterman would have small comedians, club comedians that were really good and then ended up getting sitcoms and stuff because they went on Letterman.
Yep.
And I think he was much more respected by the guests than Leno was. And it made for better interviews.
Yeah, and his music, the caliber of, I always look forward to the caliber of his musical guests. When he had Van Halen on there, he had the Foo Fighters, he had everybody you could imagine. The Tonight Show didn't do stuff like that. And Letterman still had his house band, Paul Schaefer and the boys, and Anton Fig on the drums. And that shit, that's
you know what else I used to watch in the 90s? It was on HBO. Dennis Miller had a show.
Oh, yeah.
And he used to be a leftist.
Isn't he still?
No, he's a fucking MAGA asshole.
No.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, Dennis Miller's shit was edgy as fuck back in the day.
Yeah, it was a good show that he had on. And it was on, I think it was on right before Tales from the Crypt. And I used to watch them both back to back. That was a good show too. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
There was some talk about bringing that back, but I guess there's a licensing issue with who owns the name and the puppet, I guess. I don't know. I saw a TikTok about it.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you talking about Craig Ferguson?
No.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the Tales from the Crypt thing, right?
Tales from the Crypt, where the Crypt Keeper was like a dead guy.
Yeah.
And then there were like little short stories that were horror.
Yeah.
But they were really well done. They were good.
But in that same time period, you remember the Craig Ferguson show, right?
Yeah, Craig Ferguson. Well, I remember Craig Ferguson was on a network.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then he had the skeleton dude off to the side that was like his sidekick. And so when you said puppet,
I guess I don't really remember that.
Oh yeah, that was like key to his shtick. But his show was high caliber stuff too.
He came on like either after Letterman or after Leno.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Yeah.
After Letterman, I think he had the Late Show.
Well,
then the Late Show, and
then you got Conan. Yeah, but then you got Conan O'Brien too. Conan's still good. I love Conan.
Yeah, Conan's good. His podcast is really good. I don't know if you listen to that.
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes.
His podcast is really good. I enjoy it. Plus, he says fuck. He says fuck a lot. It's better. Do you think if I keep putting that case of Mountain Dew back there and then I drink them while I'm on there, we'll get a Pepsi sponsorship?
Yeah, when we get more than 3 fucking people who watch the podcast, sure. Somebody from Pepsi is bound to stumble in. And I tried to get a Converse sponsorship the other day with that post of my new shoes, and I haven't heard anything yet. Fuck you, Converse.
I used to have a pair of Chuck Taylors back in the 80s. They were super popular. All right, let's get back to serious business. So let's talk about what's about to happen in California.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say this is climate change related, although it probably is. But they're talking about 1,000-year floods. Those are a thing, It's when the flood is so bad that it only occurs about once every 1,000 years on average. We'll know that it's climate change, though, if they have another 1,000-year flood 3 years from now. But I don't know. They're evacuating people because they're expecting 100 inches of rain.
Well, but
that's insane.
This is going to benefit Lake Mead, right? Is it going to go that far east?
I don't know. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, that's not in California, is it? It's not, right?
No, but they share. That's a water resource for California.
Right, that's where the water comes from. So I don't know. All I've seen is they're calling it an atmospheric river, which I've never heard before.
Yeah, so it's coming off the Pacific.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so it's gonna start. So is Lake Mead on the other side of the Rockies?
It's on the
California
California
the rain
side.
won't get there.
Oh, well, fuck. Now I got to look it up. Hold on. Where is Lake Mead?
But I don't know. Every time that I've seen in my life where California gets a bunch of rain, there's mudslides. So I'm expecting lots of that. It's going to be pretty devastating, it seems like.
It's actually 30 miles east of Vegas. So
it's not on the other side of the Rockies then.
No, it's still on the California side. That's
so it might get filled up.
Well, they need it.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so that it's ongoing, right? It's happening like current in real time right now.
Yeah, or about to happen. I don't know. I get the alerts from the Weather Channel app that tells me about it, and I got one today.
Let me look at.
But I don't think it's actually started yet. I think it's just coming this week. Is going to be that.
We've been socked in rain all day here. Oh yeah, here we
really?
go. Yeah,
we had blue skies in February up here in northwestern Pennsylvania. That is extremely rare. It's still cold as fuck. It's only 35 degrees, but it was bright and sunny today.
I had a guy jump into one of my posts saying, and it's another one of my doom and gloom posts where the world is ending, because it is, that flowers are blooming in Antarctica.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's not good.
You saw that comment, or you saw that story?
I saw that story.
Oh, okay. Because I haven't.
Yeah. That's not good.
On that note, though, I started watching, and we're going tangential again here.
I don't know. I like this. This is good. This is different than how we normally do it, but I'm enjoying it.
I started watching the new season of True Detective with Jodie Foster, and it takes place in the Arctic, I think. Yeah, it's in the Arctic, and it's pretty fucking trippy. And people are giving it shit for trying to play off of season 1, which, that it's dealing with some supernatural shit. I get that. That's fine. But there's no dynamic in the main characters like there was with Woody Harrelson and my boy Matthew McConaughey. But it's definitely.
I only ever watched season 1. How many seasons are there?
This is season 4. So season 2 and 3 are absolute garbage. Don't even bother with them. Season 1 is when you talk about True Detective, you're only talking about season 1 because nobody cares about 2 and 3.
Okay.
But I think season 4 is going to be one of those things that we continue to talk about. There's a lot of weird hardcore sex scenes in it with Jodie Foster and a guy, which to me
that's a little weird.
Yeah, it weirded me out a lot, and I kind of fast forwarded past that because it made me uncomfortable. Oh yeah, I'm looking at the radar on wonderground.com, which is my chosen weather source. And from Los Angeles all the way up to British Columbia. No, from Los Angeles up to whatever the state is that borders to the north of Oregon or Washington. Oregon, right?
Yeah, Oregon. Washington's above Oregon.
Okay, so they're getting a shit ton of fucking rain right now, and it's, not good. We are getting this band that's coming. Now we're doing the weather. We've got a band.
We're off the rails today. That's okay.
I need a green screen. A band of showers extending from the central United States down to the Florida Peninsula is pissing James off. That's why I didn't drive Uber today, because it's a muddy mess out there, and I don't need people tracking shit in my vehicle. Yeah. So, you want to wrap on number 5?
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't even really want to talk about that, but I put it on there. So, yeah, the past few days we've been bombing Iraq and Syria and Yemen again, creating more terrorists for the future.
I would like to
killing civilians like we do.
Yeah, but to our credit, we're not like leveling entire city blocks and schools and hospitals. We're better at this we're better at killing people than Israel is.
What I found interesting is that we admitted that we find no link between the attack in Jordan and Iran, other than it was, the weapons came from Iran initially, but not that Iran directed it. There's no evidence of that.
Right. And I want to point something else out on that note, is that when we decided to make these strikes in Syria and Iraq, Yemen's a little bit different in terms of how we're executing that, but at least in Yemen and Iraq, in retaliation for our troops in Iraq, and it's difficult to say whether or not that base was in Syria or it was in Jordan, but for whatever reason, we consulted with Iran prior to making these strikes. Iran, we did not strike Iran, which is everybody that's walking around WW3 mongering that they've been doing for months. That, oh, Biden's going to get us in a World War III. It's such a stupid fucking statement, because we consulted directly with Iran and Iraq in these cases, the prime minister of Iraq saying, this is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to do it to. And in all likelihood, this is when we're going to do it. So it wasn't like, and Iran was completely okay with it. Iran was, as long as you're not bombing us, we're fine. You can hit our proxies, because that's why we have proxies, so that we can keep our hands clean and they can die on our behalf, because they're happy to.
Right.
There's no premise for World War III in any of what's been going on. But we make no mistake, we consulted exhaustively with Iraq and Iran.
There is no premise for World War III, but there is a very high risk of a widening conflict in the Middle East. That is still, that's like a balancing act that everybody's doing over there to try to not have it expand and become bigger. And
the expansion is most likely to come from how Israel, because remember Desert Storm, and remember the diplomacy that had to be employed over there to keep Israel from responding if Scud missiles hit Jerusalem, which they did,
right?
Because it was a coalition of Arab nations that hated being a coalition with us. There was no love in that coalition whatsoever. And if Israel had decided to respond directly to themselves being attacked, the other countries and their hatred for Israel, their justified hatred for Israel, would have broken the coalition. So any escalation in a wider regional sense is going to come from actions, not what we do in responding to these little pockets of proxies, but in terms of what Israel does. So if Israel decides to go balls out on Hezbollah in Lebanon, that could lead to Hezbollah taking a more direct role in retaliating against Israel in Israel. And then Israel is going to have to either restrain themselves and let us do the surgical thing, or they're going to say, nope, we're pulling out all the stops, which they would do, and we would sit back and watch them. We would continue to funnel supplies to Israel to execute, because Israel's our proxy.
Yep.
Fucking gross. Ugh. God. You got anything else to say about that?
No, no.
You're tapped
We'll
out.
just say the same things we've said in every other episode about it, because nothing's changed.
I would like to wrap on a story then, if I could. So I get triggered on the daily on Twitter.
Wait, do you want me to tell the story about the church first before you go into your story? Because your story's better.
Yeah.
Your story's better. So I was doing a walk yesterday. It was really nice out. And I walked by a church that had been foreclosed on. And it had a sign on it. It looked like a KeyBank ad from afar. But I walked up to it. And it said, "This blight brought to you by KeyBank." And then it had some Bible verse about the doors of God or something always being open. And then it said, "But these doors were permanently closed by KeyBank." I just found it hilarious because fuck churches, first of all. They don't pay taxes. How the fuck can't you afford your mortgage if you don't have to pay taxes or anything? All your money is tax-free. You just people just give you money and you can't afford to pay your mortgage. That's fucked up. And the church wasn't like a new church. It's old. It's an old one.
What denomination is it?
I don't know. It was Christian something or other. I don't know. The First Alliance of God or something. I don't know.
Some fly-by-night group.
I never actually walked by it before. I mean, it probably was initially a Catholic church or something, but then it got one of those lesser, a little bit crazier Christian denominations on it. But I found it hilarious. Yeah, fuck your church. I'm not a fan of banks either, but in the case of this, I'm glad the bank won.
I'm hoping that squatters find that church and bust the doors open and move the fuck in. Because here's
another church story. So in Pittsburgh, I don't know. It's been 12 years since I've been there, but there was a church, a big church, that had turned into a bar and restaurant, and it was awesome. It was awesome going into a church with the stained glass windows and everything, and having drinks and having a meal. It was great. I loved it. That's what all churches should be.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, now tell your story because I know it's a good one.
All right, so I get triggered on the daily on Twitter by this stupid bitch, Juanita Broderick, and she's a Republican tool that they trotted out to try to bring down Bill Clinton and blah blah blah. And I'm not saying Bill Clinton didn't deserve to be brought down, but she's just a fucking horrible wreck of a person. And she posts shit all the time. And today she was posting the fact that she was happy about Zelensky being offended if there was going to be a Tucker Carlson, Vladimir Putin interview. So she's basically cheering on Vladimir Putin. And all I could think about when I saw her post was the fact that my grandfather, on my father's side, was a U.S. Air Force pilot, and he actually trained the guys who flew the Enola Gay mission. My grandfather
Enola Gay dropped the first
atomic bomb on Japan. He passed away in 1988 or 1989. But before that, I had a girlfriend. He lived in South Texas. I lived in South Texas. He and my grandmother lived in a little town called Elsa, and I lived in Brownsville. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she happened to be Japanese. Now, I knew my grandfather's history. I knew, what he had done in his life. But I didn't put two and two together. And I brought, her name was Barbara. Shout out to Barbara if you're out there.
That's not a very Japanese name.
No, it's really not. Her father was white, but her mother was Japanese. Her grandparents on her mother's side are Japanese Buddhists living down in Hawaii. They're like very devout Buddhists. Anyway, I brought Barbara over to Grandma and Grandpa's house for dinner one night. And I don't think my grandma knew that Barbara was Japanese. Barbara looked very Japanese. And so we arrived at the house, and it was all very cordial. Grandpa was unusually quiet. And again, I wasn't putting two and two together. We sat and we had dinner, and Grandpa never said a fucking word during the entire dinner. He was just stone cold quiet. And as we were leaving, I pulled my grandmother aside to say goodnight to her, and I said, "Is everything all right?" Because I felt like something was up with Grandpa tonight. And she said, "Your girlfriend is Japanese." and Grandpa hasn't quite let go of some things. And so he was being restrained in his most diplomatic way he could. And I'm like, oh, holy shit. I didn't even think about that. And I felt so bad. And Barbara was laughing it off. She thought it was clever and funny. I didn't do it on purpose, but Grandpa, was holding a grudge. And I didn't want to know what was going through his mind at dinner. But, we broke up about a year later and had nothing to do with that. Right, Barbara, if you're out there? Anyway, Grandpa was a good guy. He was.
What a coincidence if Barbara is the one person that watches all our episodes.
Yeah, right. She's actually on YouTube. I know her account, and maybe I'll tag her in it, and she can confirm this story because I know she remembers it. Anyway, that's my racist grandfather story.
Nice.
I got.
All right. One more thing. Do you want to talk about Josh Hawley and the TikTok CEO?
Well, it wasn't just, it was Tom Cotton too, wasn't it?
Yes.
Are you're Chinese, right? I'm from Singapore. So you've been a member of the Chinese These fucking people. Sure, let's talk about it.
Now, I personally don't think that he's that dumb that he doesn't know Singapore and China are different countries. He was just making sound bites for his campaign.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, look how dumb he is." No, Republican voters are fucking dumb. Republican politicians aren't that dumb. They're just evil.
Oh, wait. So is Tom Cotton the old guy who is saying, "What is yada, yada, yada"? Who the fuck is that? Is that Cotton?
No, that was
Foghorn Leghorn.
No, that wasn't Tom Cotton. That
I can't think of his name.
Kennedy. Wasn't that Kennedy?
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck was that? I don't even understand what that was.
That's where he was questioning Zuckerberg, I think it was.
Yeah, it was. But what are you talking about?
I think he's dumb. I just think he plays it up even dumber than he actually is. But you're right. What they're doing is creating sound bites they're demagoguing. That's what they're doing. It's fucking demagoguery. To get their fucking base moving against what? Fuck.
Against progress, against,
it's McCarthyism. My God, you could have put the clips of the McCarthy sessions right next to this and you wouldn't be able to tell which was which.
Could you imagine the world we'd live in if that never happened? If the McCarthy hearings never happened?
Yeah, if we never chose, yes, I can imagine it. It would be better than what we.
It would be amazing. If we kept progressing after Roosevelt, at the same pace, we'd be in a great place today. Great place.
Yeah, and I don't.
Instead, the McCarthy hearings happened and knocked us backwards a few decades.
And here we thought for decades that shit was dead and gone, that was over. Well, apparently it's not. We're doing it again.
Yep. And even the Democrats are on board with being anti-communists and all that. The communist boogeyman, they're on board with that. The Democrats are today.
Because they need a way to shut up the progressives and the leftists, and that's the only thing that they have. Fuck. And I don't give a shit that Bernie Sanders is on board with a proper perspective on Gaza today. He's had fucking October, November, December, January, February. He's had 4 or 5 months to recognize what was going on. And all, the shit that is being pointed out to the Biden administration today, where you're seeing like advisors and stuff saying that the Biden administration needs to stop their unwavering support for Israel. People that never would have said that before. We have been saying this since the middle of October. The rest of the world has been saying this, and then Biden comes out with his, I'd be a Zionist if I were a black Chinese person or some shit. They had every fucking opportunity to be on board with this, and then it took Bernie Sanders this long to fucking use the words, and Biden's never going to own any of this.
No. Why not, James? Because
don't fucking quiz me.
No, he needs that money from AIPAC.
Oh, yeah, AIPAC. Of course.
He needs that money. It's the money. It's always the money. If the Palestinian organization, if there was a Palestinian organization that could outbid AIPAC, he'd change his tune.
Right. It was Noam Chomsky who said the Palestinians have neither power nor money, and that's why they will never have a voice in the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going. It could be very different. It could be very fucking different, but for David Ben-Gurion and the people that pushed us into this, and the fucking Rothschild family in France. Fuck, I don't want to get into this shit. It's too much, man.
We should have saved the lighthearted stuff for now. What else can we talk about? I don't know. I keep thinking of your TikTok where you said everything's gotten worse every month for the past 8 years.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong. I mean,
Go on, explain.
Some things have gotten better.
You can't just say that. You have to point out examples.
Well, some months are better than others as far as weather goes. Some months some months are better than others because of, I don't know. Yes, I understand. It's a downward slide for sure. But 8 years, really?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because, well, you have to go back even further because was it Obama's second term when the housing crisis happened?
I mean, you can go all the way back to Reagan. Everything's gotten worse since Reagan was president. Just worse and worse and worse. Because that's what first took the top tax rate down to where it is now. Mm-hmm. And that's when the corporate money first started owning everything.
Yep.
So you're right, I guess. Everything has gotten worse, but not just 8 years, for 40 years.
And if you want to be really realistic about it, you can look ahead at every possible combination. Do a whole Doctor Strange thing where you look at 14 million possibilities for what lies ahead. And none of it's any good. There's nothing.
No, I mean, like we've talked about before, it's going to have to get worse before there's enough.
Oh, dude, our podcast just got cut off. Why the fuck? All right, Habersky, I guess that's the end of the podcast. I'm left alone. You son of a bitch.
At this moment, Matthew was abducted by the Mossad. His whereabouts are currently unknown, but we have found his left shoe on a street corner in Philly. Avenge him.